here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. A group of U.S.-based Filipinos denounced the presence of palace spokesperson Harry Roque in New York late last week. They claim Roque was there to campaign for a seat at the UN's International Law Commission, a spot that they say Roque does not deserve. Arian Calumbiran with the details.
This is the call of a US-based human rights group as it trooped to the cocktail reception of presidential spokesperson Harry Roque in an upscale restaurant in Manhattan, New York. Roque was in the US last week for a supposed official visit to the UN. In a video released by Bayan USA, the rallyists are seen attempting to disrupt the reception by trying to get their way into the restaurant past its security personnel and other staff. Some of the protesters managed to make it to the door of the restaurant, holding their petition letter urging the ILC to drop Roque's nomination to the UN office. Others have, meanwhile, managed to enter the restaurant as customers.
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
The groups want the ILC in New York to kick Roque out of the US, calling him an enabler of the Philippine government's crimes against its own people. They argue that Roque is not a human rights lawyer as he claims to be, but is actually a human rights violator.
Bernadette from Malaya, New Jersey will be speaking on behalf of...
When the protesters had all been escorted out of the venue, they continued their demonstrations from outside the restaurant. In a statement, the palace spokesman condemned the attempt to disrupt the reception. He claims that because of the group's attempt to enter the restaurant, they supposedly injured 2 waiters and caused damage to property. Roque said he was also informed that some of the rallyists ordered food but did not pay for them. Roque also believes that the groups should not be called human rights organizations and instead refer to them as a militant group. He says that if they were a human rights group, they would not deliberately hurt elderly waiters. Meanwhile, Bayan USA denied Roque's allegations, saying the group was not a militant group and is made up of concerned Filipino communities in the US. They also claimed that the event did not host other international missions as claimed by Roque. The group believes the dinner was to commemorate Roque's nomination to the ILC, giving him an opportunity to lobby for a seat in the ILC. The organization also described the dinner as exorbitant. Arian Calumbiran, we are One News.
Presidential aspirant and Senator Ping Lacson believes that even without legislation, the Finance Department has the ability to suspend excise taxes on fuel, at least to some extent. In the presidential forum aired on Signal, Lacson pointed out that there is a provision under the train law authorizing the DOF to suspend excise taxes at a certain level if projections on the fuel rate hike continues to increase. The senator acknowledged that the government may lose billions in foregone revenues with the suspension, but he insists that the DOF can actually suspend fuel excise taxes on its own accord, as long as it's kept on a level that is, quote, not below the amount of excise tax collected at the time of suspension.
So it's not correct to say on the part of the DOF na wala silang magagawa except through legislation. No, there's a provision there. If they want to introduce some stopgap measures.
Meanwhile, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno vowed that if he wins the presidency, he'll prioritize bringing down the prices of petroleum and electricity by 50%. Moreno says he's aware that the government may lose over 100 billion pesos in income, but he says he's willing to sacrifice government revenue if it's for the benefit of Filipinos.
Kung sakali, bigyan ninyo ako ng pagkakataon. Ang unang-una kong gagawin ay bababaan ko ang buwis ng petrolyo. Sabi, malulugi daw ang gobyerno ng 130 billion. Tama naman, malulugi ang gobyerno. Ano ngayon kung malugi ang gobyerno, bumalik naman sa tao.
For Vice President Leni Robredo, it's better to focus on her work than interact with trolls. Robredo says for the last 5 years, some of her detractors have incessantly trolled her, but she chose to focus instead on her duties as the vice president, adding that it's better to help out than waste time and energy interacting with trolls.
Ang parating sagot, lugi nga sa akin yung mga trolls kasi hindi ako naapektuhan. Kasi kung papansinin ko yung lahat na paninira sa akin na wala namang katuturan, nagsasayang lang ako ng oras at emosyon.
The Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship argues that Metro Manila can no longer afford any delays in its planned shift to Alert Level 2. Speaking with us here on One News, Joey Concepcion says the government was merely being cautious when they moved to extend the Alert Level 3 in NCR until November 14. But he says the status should be downgraded to Alert Level 2 by mid-November if the government wants to give the economy a chance to recover this fourth quarter. Concepcion maintains that it's crucial to further ease restrictions by November 15, as this is the time when more Filipinos will go out to shop in preparation for the holidays. And he also noted that health experts are backing the claim that NCR is ready for Alert Level 2, although he admits that they are still on defense because of the high COVID-19 death toll.
Remember, we had so many lockdowns this year, and many of these business establishments have lost money and need to get better cash flow to be able to pay the 13-month pay their obligations with the bank, and the list goes on. No? So if the delay on bringing it down to Alert Level 2 will happen, then many of these business establishments will move over to the year 2022 with a financial problem.
Meanwhile, the Tourism Department is offering free RT-PCR tests for local tourists starting today. The agency says qualified domestic tourists may be tested for free at the Philippine Children's Medical Center starting November 1. The DOT also says that this is part of their move to extensively promote safe tourism destinations to support the sector's recovery, and those who would like to avail of free tests may visit the website of the Tourism Promotions Board. Tagaytay City reopened most of its tourist attractions over the weekend, drawing large crowds and making health protocols a challenge to implement. Camille Samonte tells us more.
Heavy traffic greeted several motorists in Tagaytay on Sunday. Hundreds of people visited the country's second summer capital as the city reopened its tourist attractions. Upon entering the picnic grove, there was already a long queue of tourists. All of them are excited to see the breathtaking view of Taal volcano. Sally and her family even traveled from Rizal to celebrate her birthday at the park. She also brought her 65-year-old parents to stroll around.
Para makapag-relax at para maigalan na rin yung mga senior for the long run, hindi nakalabas ng bahay, di ba? Kasi bored na sila. Saka since ito naman ay nature, so maganda para sa kanilang health.
Feli Brada, meanwhile, took advantage of the long weekend and booked an overnight stay in the city. She even brought her dogs to walk around the park before checking in at their hotel.
Nakahinga ng maluwag. Kasi hindi sila lumalabas sa bahay lang sila. After naka-check-in kami, 2 p.m. pa. Kaya papunta kami sa hotel namin. Hanggang bukas lang, 2 days, 1 night.
Park vendors are also happy with the reopening of the picnic grove.
Malaking pasalamat kung nagbukas na po ang picnic grove dahil po malaking tulong po sa amin. Dahil iba po kita rito kaysa sa labas po .
Nakakatulong din naman po dahil po nagpandemya po, tapos mahirap po maghanap ng trabaho ngayon kaya nagbukas po siya, ayos naman po.
Tourists are not required to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19, but children and minors are strictly prohibited. Bringing of food inside the park is allowed, which is why many families are seen eating together in the cottages. Authorities estimate that more than 6,000 people visited the picnic grove on Sunday.
Parang nabigla po kami sa dami ng biglang pumasok dito sa picnic grove. Siguro po dahil long weekend, kaya maraming taong pumasok dito.
The park management, however, complained of some tourists who are not following the health protocols.
Kaya lang dahil sabik sila na makalabas, nakakalungkot na parang hindi na po nila nasusunod yung mga protocols natin, health and safety protocols natin. Pero sa kabila naman po noon, may mga tourist police naman po kami na tumutulong at saka yung mga empleyado namin na miya't-miya ay nagpapaalala.
Since Tagaytay City remains under COVID-19 Alert Level 3, the Ferris wheel ride is still closed to the public. Other activities that tourists can enjoy, such as horseback riding and zip line, are now open. Tourists going to People's Park, meanwhile, will have to go through a checkpoint. Police and local government personnel are strictly inspecting each vehicle, as minors are still prohibited. Last Wednesday, the LGU ordered the park's closure due to a violation of physical distancing and overcrowding.
Bawal na pong pumasok ang mga bata. Whenever they come, binibigyan na po ng instruction sa gate kaagad na hindi po allowed ang mga bata sa lahat ng establishments ng city government as well as other restaurants and resorts. Ganon din po, ginawa naming mas visible ang signages namin para ma-remind ng public.
Following this, the park administrator implemented some adjustments to control the crowd. Only 300 tourists per batch are allowed to enter the park. Some tourists, however, complained about the face shield requirement even in an outdoor setting.
Hindi po masyadong maayos pagka titingin ka ng view, nakakasagabal. Tulad niya, pag lumipad, gagastos ka na naman ulit, bibili ka na ng face shield.
The famous Sky Ranch, several restaurants and hotels are also now open to tourists. For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. With President Duterte appointing 3 COMELEC commissioners before the elections, presidential aspirants Vice President Leni Robredo and Senator Manny Pacquiao want a hearing on these appointments to be made public. A political analyst and constitutional law expert agrees with former Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio that Bongbong Marcos may be disqualified due to his prior conviction in a tax evasion case, but only if this falls under the grounds provided under the Constitution. And Pinay beauty queen Cindy Obenita wins the Philippines' second Miss Intercontinental crown. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us again later at 10:45 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.